Okay, so welcome to a very youth-focused More Grip, Less Friction. So today's chat is really to look at the primary and secondary lines on our RP Topper BIC 4.7 Cadet and Fever. And realistically, when I talk about primary lines, I'm talking about main sheets, jib sheets, kite sheets, asymmetric sheets. And when I talk about secondary lines, I'm talking about out hauls, down hauls, Cunninghams and kickers, or vans, depending on what we're going to call them. So more grip and less friction. What are we really trying to say there? So if I'm looking for more grip in my dinghy, how do I achieve that? And also, why do I need that? If I'm looking for more grip, it's usually to do with control in the hand. And I talk specifically about main sheets and jib sheets there. If you're sailing a quicker boat, then you want a main sheet that is the right diameter and you can get hold of, it's your primary feedback tool in the boat, and boat speed. Main sheets are really important that they're the right size and they're not too big, and they give us control for jibes and tacks and all of those elements. So it's really important you've got the right size line and you can actually get hold of it, and it works well for you, especially for youth sailors, because quite often adults will be selecting your main sheets for you. So it's really important you feedback to anyone who's buying your rope that you've got the right size line, because it's very easy for us as adults to say, actually that's really big and grippy, but your hands are an awful lot smaller. So make sure you've got the the right size main sheet. In terms of more grip in out hauls and down hauls and kickers, what that's all about is really so that you can adjust them and they stay in the cleat and they don't slip through. And that's really important, obviously, for you oppie sailors on your sprit up haul, that stays up, because obviously that's a big bind. But also, when we're smaller, we need to use more kicker and Cunningham and out haul, because we always have to flatten ourselves off a lot earlier than everybody else because we're so much lighter. So that's really important. Also, when we're talking about grip, we, for the Fever and boats like that, when we're hoisting sails, downwind sails, then it's really important that those hoists are fast and we can grab hold of that rope. So there's two things there: it's the right diameter and that it's grippy. And the last element of grip that we briefly touched on is that when you anchor a rope, when you put it in a clam cleat or in a V jammer, that it actually stays there. Because there's several examples I'll go through boat by boat later, where I know we've always had issues, when we're talking about grip before. So if we move on to one way to grab grip is to get a more bobbly cover on your rope. So you can see in this picture, there's a really lumpy cover to this rope. And that's really beneficial for us for secondary lines. So for your out haul kicker Cunningham, this really bobbly rope, you can see how it locks into this V jammer here. You can see that the actual lumpy cover will get wedged into those. So that works really well. And also it sits really well in these clam cleats here, locks into those grooves, and that means it really won't move. So in 4 and 5 mil, if you're looking for a more grippy cover so that you don't get slippage in various systems, and we'll come to those systems boat specific in a little bit, then that's a great 8-plat bobbly cover. And again, you can see it here in a main sheet, which works really well. The other place we can get grip from a covering rope is what's in it materials wise. So you've got two options really. You've got polyester, which is here, which we all know very well. And then you can blend polyester with Technora primarily is the best grip coating that we have. And we blend those fibers together and that makes it really grippy in the hand when it's wet. Polyester can be a bit slippery when it's wet, but if you Technora in the cover, it gives you a grippier cover. I'm just going to demonstrate the other thing that putting Technora in a cover gives you, and that is it gives you a longer lasting cover. So obviously when we put rope in cleats and in V jammers, the cover wears out. And this little video demonstration is just showing you how much longer the covers last when you blend these technical materials together. You can see that's probably running a little bit slow on your end. You can see the red rope melted really quickly. The rope in the middle, which has Technora and polyester in it, as we discussed, hasn't really melted that badly. And there's another cover on the right, which is made from PBO, which is mainly a big yacht rope, focused rope, which is there really as a benchmark. So the other place we look for grip in dinghies is in ratchet blocks. So on your main sheet, if if you find hand power is difficult and you get tired over a couple of races over a day, the other place you can look for grip to unload your forearms and take that weight away is obviously your ratchet block. But as rope has developed, those ratchet blocks have also developed in the teeth that are in them. So over here, we've got offset teeth, which are, again, anodized aluminium or plastic. And they work really well with that 8-plat grippy cover rope that we talked about earlier, as does this one here. If you're going for very sort of metallic alloy teeth type ratchets like these ones here, then you need to use a smooth cover. You can't use that bobbly cover that we talked about because the bobbles of the rope just get pulled apart by the teeth in the ratchet block. So those are two little things to watch out for. So in that little nutshell, we've sort of looked at ways to build grip, and that's either going after more, bobbly covers on your rope or after going in grip in your hardware. So next thing I'm talking about is less friction. And once I've finished this section, I'm going to look at each of the boat types specifically, and we can draw a little bit of a consensus from those two elements together. So why do I want less friction in the rope? This is really where I want things slippery. Now, why do I want them slippery? Well, in terms of hoists, when rope's going up in the air and we're hoisting sails, then we want less friction there, don't we? We don't want a system that's really hard for us to pull up because that will slow the maneuver down. And therefore, people doing the maneuver quicker than us will have their kites up and they'll be off faster. We also want less friction to give us a more positive feel upwind. And that really refers to having a main sheet, and everywhere where the main sheet isn't running in a person's hand, where it's just in the blocks, then we take the cover off the rope and we just have Dyneema through the system. And Dyneema is really slippery, and I'm going to come back to that and give you some examples of that in a minute. Obviously, adjustability and repeatability of sail shapes, we've talked about that in the sense of grip, but in the sense of friction, when I take my rope out of the cleat and I want to ease the outhaul, if there's too much friction in the system, especially in light winds, the outhaul won't go out and you end up having to push the sail out, which knocks all of the shape out of it and all of the flow out of it. So it's really important that when you ease the system off, downhaul, kick and Cunningham, that they actually ease really well, and you need less friction in the system there. Obviously, lighter rope packages absorb less water, so the more you can take cover off rope and just have Dyneema core where your class rules allow. Obviously in the 4.7 in the laser you can't do that because you have to have a consistent diameter of rope. So those are some of the reasons why we're looking for less friction, and let's have a little bit of a look about the things that cause friction, so and how to get rid of it. So this over here is a group of control lines running through one friction ring, and because they're all together, they're creating a lot of friction. So you definitely don't want to do that. You want to split lines up, ideally the same as in this image here. So each control line is running through its own low friction ring or a little block, but never run multiples through the same ones. The other thing you're really looking for is to use a bigger block. These blocks here are only just big enough for what we're doing. This block's perfect size, obviously, for that tiny rope. But as we progress forwards, if you put lots of ropes together through systems, then they abrade on each other and they chafe, especially if they've got Technor in them. So when you're looking at tapering for a block, then this is really what we're looking at. You can see this is a 6mm main sheet, and you can see how that fits in the block. That's almost too big. What you should be seeing is block either side of the rope, and that's your sort of visual indicator that the rope is the right size for the block. If the rope totally fills the block, that's creating an awful lot of friction. So if your blocks are too small like that, you go up a block size, or you come down in the rope diameter. But you can see here, this is a tapered main sheet, and you can see how it goes from full thickness where we'd have our hands on it, and we taper that down so that the core goes into the cover, and then we make a nice fine point out of it. And then it just runs in its Dyneema, and you can see this has very little friction because there's just that tiny Dyneema core. And you can see over here is the full image of the rope. So you go outside cover on a main sheet like this, and then you put the cover inside the core, and then the core runs all the way to the end, and then this is a split tail bridle, and this is done in kite line and 3mm Dyneema. So this is really super small, but actually this is a main sheet for a 49er. So what we're really taking away from this is that actually we all tend to use rope on dinghies, especially in our youth classes, that's really quite big. So to look at the boat type specifically, this is Topper, which James Crossley has sent me the details of his. He's one of our ambassadors. Oh, excuse me, jumped on. So here in James's Topper, we've got kicker, Cunningham, outhaul. So James has opted here on the outhaul for the Topper for a 4mm control line, which is quite standard. And this is R8, the first image with a bobbly cover, because he really wants this to set very positively. But he needs quite an easy, flexible rope so that when he lets that outhaul off, it actually just goes out with a bit less friction because it's softer. So that's why he's put R8 in that outhaul system, because he needs a softer rope. In his downhaul system, in his Cunningham, you can see he's got a Technora and polyester blended cover, because there's a lot of load on this and it gets a lot of work through this cleat. So he's opted for a Technora cover there, which gives him good grip. And then here he's running pure Dyneema anywhere where he's not touching it through that primary line. And then the actual control system down to the cleat, which you can't quite see, again, is in a Technora and polyester cover. So the other two systems on the boat which are worth looking at is his main sheet system. Obviously he's running 2 main sheets. I know he runs a 6mm main sheet for when the wind is light so that he can ease away really, really well. And then when it's windier, he uses a 7mm main sheet just to give him more grip, more control in the hand. And he's got a good size 57 block on there as well. So the other place in the Topper where James is running just Dyneema, because he wants his traveller to just slip backwards and forwards, but not elongate at all. He's using 4mm Dyneema here, a max Dyneema with a metal ferrule spiced in, which he uses as a purchase to get the traveller down hard. So obviously there, we want 0 friction. So you can see there's no cover on the rope there. So that's something to take away from the Topper. So the open bick, again, looking at these images here, you can see main sheet is all 1 diameter and probably 6mm there looking at it, which is the right size for these blocks, not too big. So you'll get good control out of that. And you can see here, he's got a cleat and some good size 5 or 6mm line here, and then just Dyneema here as well. So he can ease that away. So again, line size is critical. Make sure the rope isn't too big, and that will work. And these are all polyester covers on this bick. So the fever is another option for, just looking at where we can get rid of friction. Again, you've got quite a lot of systems going on here, so it's really important that you make sure that you don't create too big a diameter on the main sheets so that you've got good control. But again, fever's pretty quick downwind. There's a lot going on. I think a really grippy cover on a main sheet there would really help. And then stripped out Dyneema anywhere else you can get away with it within class rules. And equally on these kite up and down systems, if you can strip those out so that they're pure Dyneema, they'll slip a lot more easily and the kite will come in a lot more easily. And equally, pole out systems, you want to really make sure you've got a grippy cover on there to make sure that you're not losing the kite halyard down or the tack line up. So that's really positive and fixed. So that's just some takeaways there really for the fever. So the oppie, again, there's some key systems here which you really need grip for. One of them is sprit uphaul. Obviously we use these V jammers here on the mast. And this is one of our key frustrations as oppie sailors. I remember it so well myself, is that sprit just dropping down. Most of that is usually this cleat slipping, and that's where you want a Technora covered rope in that cleat, because it'll go in there and stay in there. 5mm R8 works really well, but equally 5mm in any other Technora product will not slip on you there, and worth replacing the rope, really fairly regularly. Also, oppie outhaul has always been a bit tricky. There's a lot of friction in this system. There's some Technora rope on here, but ideally, if you could taper that out into just Dyneema, and then in the cleat have a good cover, then that would work really well. And that would make the outhaul on the oppie a lot more manageable. Equally, everywhere on the oppie, you've got these V jammers for the rig set up. So it's really important that you've got a bobbly cover there, because things slipping is the real trick with the oppie there. And obviously, oppie main sheets, we always tend to find are quite big. You can get tapered main sheets. That's going to make life an awful lot easier. If you can taper them yourselves and learn to do that, that's really worth doing. That's quite a quick thing to learn. The laser, this is just a picture of kind of these secondary lines on the laser. Obviously, laser main sheets, most people are using sort of 6 or 7 mil. This can be a really technical rope or you know, quite a basic polyprop rope. The trick is that you look after your main sheets in the laser so that it doesn't tangle, it doesn't knot, and you don't coil it up into small loops. But in terms of grip on these lines, most people tend to use Technora ropes on the kicker, because it definitely doesn't move and it then lasts an awful lot longer, and that really is one of your primary tools. And again, on the Cunningham, the outhaul on the laser, tend to use something a bit softer, so that you can actually get that adjustment in on the outhaul. And laser traveler, again, just raw Dyneema, so it's super slick, and your traveler block moves really easily backwards and forwards, usually around about 5 mil. Any bigger than that, and you're starting to create friction. Obviously, you can't taper rope in a laser, so you've got totally separate lines, some in Dyneema, some in covered rope. So on the Cadet, this is one of the Synergy models that you might have seen at the Dinghy Show. What Simon's done here is, obviously, Cadet is running a split tail main sheet, which can be the same setup as we looked at earlier on the 49er version. A 6 mil main sheet, or maybe a 7, and then really you can come down to kite line on those two back tails of the split tail. I think what we find more and more is that we're all using 3 mil Dyneema, when really we could possibly be down as small as 2 or 1.8. Or maybe a little bit smaller than that on some applications. But that's worth talking to the gurus in your fleet about, or talking to Simon at Synergy, because he's really adept at tapering. You can see this halyard here is got cover onto here, and then is just pure Dyneema up here. So it's all slippery up here, and then grippy down here where it's wearing in the block and where it's in this cleat. So anywhere you can go down line sizes or use raw Dyneema is going to work an awful lot better. Now I'm just going to finish on this this image, just to give you guys a bit of an idea about what we're doing on the 49er, because this really is all about grip and friction. Obviously, twin trapeze, and so much of this is about staying in the boat. And what you can see is Dylan and Stuart here on their main sheet bridle here, they're running 1.3 or 1.5 mil kite line, so incredibly small. And you can see up here in the blocks as well, as I showed you with that tapered main sheet, that's a very tiny Dyneema in there, probably 3 mil, and then into kite line. And then Dylan's using a 6 mil or a 7 mil main sheet, depending. You can see how small that is in that block. That's all about being able to ease and trim on, and ease and trim on, and having complete feel. But again, you know, we're all using quite big diameter ropes, and we really could come down, and that will reduce the friction. And learn those tapering skills. Those are great life sailing skills. And also grippy covers on the rope for the guys here, because obviously because of boat speed and amount of water flowing, it's really important that the covers are really grippy. But everything on this boat is really stripped down as small a diameter as possible, except where they need grip. So I hope that's been a helpful little session, and good luck sailing with yours this season.